Good morning, everyone. This is Joe Scarice, co-host and co-founder of the Creative Birth Strategy House and podcast here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. and every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to get ourselves set up. We had a great discussion yesterday on networking, and we're going to dive into I changed the topics today because I really wanted to dive into something and really tackle something that I feel is impactful to the market today: economic realities and real estate. Um, it's a broad topic, but we're going to touch on it in a minute. But let me get myself set up and invite some colleagues in and get started here with a pretty strong discussion that I put together. Um, we're really always trying to tackle discussions that really are going to impact your bottom line in real estate investing, real estate as a real estate investor or professional um, service. I feel it's important. I think there's a lot of podcasting out there and content that's like glosses over kind of the reality of what's really going on in the market. So I think our discussion today will dive into some really good rooted items that I think could touch on a lot of our circumstances as real estate professionals. So I'm just gonna get my invites in, let people know that we're here. If you would like to share it to your group of followers and connections, that'd be great. We'll get started here in just a quick moment. All right. So, economic realities in real estate is a broad topic that touches on how various factors influence the real estate market and involves understanding how macroeconomic trends like interest rates, employment rates, um, uh, consumer confidence, impact real estate prices, demand, and investment opportunities. All this has a lot of different factors to the economic realities to go on day to day, week to week, month to month. And I think by offering and extending this discussion every week, we're kind of touching on more current trends, not make believe stuff, not kind of creative idea. I mean, listen, real estate's creative, but then there's reality, and we're going to talk about the realities. So that's some key factors that you need to consider when getting into real estate investing and being a professional real estate investor. Number one is interest rates, understanding mortgage rates, understanding investment returns. If you're going to lend money, you got to understand how to make money from it. And then if you're going to use mortgages, you got to leverage how that's going to work. Is it rate sensitivity? Is it leverage? Is it the asset? What is it, right? Number two is inflation, asset appreciation, and construction costs, right? These are two very important factors in inflation. Asset appreciation, real estate often serves as a hedge against inflation as property values and rents typically rise with inflation, preserving investors' purchasing power. Construction costs, inflation can increase the cost of construction materials and labor, leading to higher property prices. This is extremely impactful when you're fixing or renovating properties. You could talk a great game, but when the reality of items come together, where your 2x4s now cost you $2 more per 2x4, 2x6s, that can impact the bottom line of completing that project. Employment and income levels. What's the housing demand? What's the housing demand? Higher employment or income levels increase the ability of individuals to buy or rent homes, boosting demand for real estate. And then also, what are the regional differences? Where is the migration trends, the employment trends in different regions that can lead to varying real estate market conditions across the country? Supply and demand, housing supply, demographic trends. I put some posts out and people just love to beat their chest. Oh, my market's just wonderful. I'm doing awesome. I'm an awesome real estate agent. Listen, the business is slowing down. It's stabilizing. You're getting less offers on properties. Rates are higher. People have home buyer sentiment. Let's get into a little reality. You're not doing that great. It's okay to think that way, but let's be honest. There's a very small housing stock right now, and it's very stale. And let's be honest, you're in a fall market. Who's coming off the fall market to get started to buy a property? They're going to wait till the spring. They're going to hold and wait and see what's going on with this market going on. All right, let's get into reality here. And then you have government policies. There's tax incentives and or zoning and land use regulations. Like I give you an example in Philadelphia, they got rid of the 10-year tax abatement. Where did all the developers go? They left. Now they're just building to rent. Nobody's building homes to live. That's a reality. That's a fact. Government thought they can get a little cocky with the housing stock, and it's working against them. Maybe they wanted to work against them. Maybe they wanted to become a rental market. Maybe they want all the urban cities throughout the country to become rental markets, and the suburban markets are where people want to live and own. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic over the next 5 to 10 years as office retail is for failing, massive foreclosures and resetting. What are they going to do with these buildings? How much medical can be converted into those buildings? How much residential can be converted into those buildings? And what are the rest of those buildings going to do? Sit and rot? It's going to be very interesting to see how this all works. But then there's economic cycles, booms and busts, recession impact. Are we in a recession? The Fed's chopping the rate down a quarter point this week, supposedly. Who knows what's going on, right? At the end of the day, we could only give a great guess and try to stay consistent in watching data and how it's going to impact our bottom line. And then there's global influences, foreign investment, economic interconnectedness. How does that impact us as real estate investors? How does that impact our single family portfolio or multifamily portfolio, our mixed use property? Now, there's some real estate segments that could be potentially affected. Residential real estate, most influenced by consumer confidence, interest rates, and employment levels. Commercial real estate, tied closely to business cycles, corporate profitability, and office space demand. Industrial real estate, driven by manufacturing, logistics, and e-commerce growth. Retail real estate, impacted by consumer spending trends, online shopping, and economic cycles. Midterm rentals, often influenced by local employment trends, corporate housing, and tourism. Understanding economic realities can help investors, buyers, and policymakers make informed decisions in the real estate market. Now, I want to first then now thank our sponsors. Get started here. I want to thank MB Capital, our unsecured business line of credit program, providing unsecured business lines of credit for real estate investors. I'd like to thank Lendmark Capital, where I'm a senior loan analyst, providing asset-based lending for investors nationwide. I'd like to thank Realty 411 with Linda Pelagas, our national publication of Realty 411, as well as national events provided throughout the country for real estate professionals. And I'd like to thank Percatech, Mr. Yardell Perkins, who supports and partners with me on this podcast, providing insight and architecture to your social media needs for your real estate professional platform. So let's get back to economic realities and real estate. Reality is that you're going to buy one property at a time. You're going to try to underwrite the deal correctly. You're going to support yourself with a strong power team, and you're going to try to mentor yourself to get to the 10 plus properties and grow into the maybe 10 plus properties, or look at mixed use, go from fixed to rent, fixed to flip to new construction, right? That's reality. Amy, good morning and welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to economic realities and real estate.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me. I am Amy Palvido, real estate technology founder of a company called Facilimax. I'm the chair of the U.S. PropTech Council, which is the Real Estate Technology Association in the United States. Longtime real estate investor. Prior to being a real estate investor, I was a general contractor. So I've been in commercial real estate and in just real estate in general since 2003. And I've done Burr like a million times. So started my real estate investing career flipping single family homes and had single family rentals. I did both for a while, got into multifamily investing in 2010, and have been doing commercial real estate ever since. So economic realities, like there's so much, but if we're going to get into the reality of real estate investing, the only economic reality that matters is what's going on where your property is that you want to buy at the end of the day. So yes, we can't escape interest rates. We can't do any of those things, but what you have to look at is real estate is very local. So in your submarket of where you are looking to buy a property, what is the wage growth? What is the average median income? What is the job growth? What is our rents holding steady? What are the certain things that this all goes into market selection? But do you have the data that you need to understand that, yes, maybe there's a deal, and everybody who's been in real estate long enough has made a bad purchase, right? They chase the dollar and say, oh, this thing is like 40% below market value. Of course it's a deal. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's in a bad area that's never going to rent. But, it's like, what do you know? But you have to understand the economic reality of who you're going to qualify as a tenant or who you're going to sell that property to when you exit, and know that going in. So, half a nickel, Joe. There you go.
Half a nickel. There it is. Well, I talk to about anywhere between 15 to 25 clients a day, right? And we dive into individual properties, Amy, and I think the biggest miss is people are not informed enough of their own properties. Like, you're calling me, I'm not calling you. I take your phone call, and they're like, "Oh, you picked up on the first ring." I'm like, "Would you like me to hang up on you?" I'm not really sure what you're expecting. So I pick up the call. I pick up the call and I say, "Listen, I want to understand your economics to your portfolio, yourself, your credit score. I want to understand the dynamics to the property." And I don't think people really understand the evolving rental market. The rental market is expected to remain robust, particularly in housing affordability, continues to challenge many potential home buyers. But I don't think they really understand what their rent capacity is, and they don't understand from an asset-based lending. Everything depends on the appraisal telling us what the market rent is. Now, if you could, I just think there's a big miss. I don't think people are taking that serious enough. I don't know. It might be me, but I'm just saying, like, they're not confident when they're giving me the information that I'm asking for.
Or they're mistaking that rental growth has been 10% over back think 2021. I mean, the rental growth in Austin went like 40% or something stupid, right? That was never going to be sustainable, because when you get into real estate investing and you have rentals, especially in housing, the average median income will dictate where you can set your rents to. It's math at the end of the day. So if your average median income is 40,000 a year, or let me make it easy, 36,000 a year in a certain market of where you're at, the max that you can charge somebody is going to be $1,000 a month, right, for rent. Because what do? You take 36,000 divided by 12. That's $3,000 a month. They have to have 3 times the income in order to afford your rent. So you're only going to be able to charge $1,000 a month. This is math. And so if you don't understand it and you say, oh, rents have been rising in this area for 20% over the last 3 years, who cares? What is the average median income? What is it growing? Is it declining? Is it maybe even then, if you want to delve down into more, what is the average median income of your tenant? If you're in workforce housing, you can't include the average median income of Class A people. What is the average median income of your prospective tenant? Who are those people, and how much are they getting paid? And if you don't know that, then you're getting into an area where you might not be able to rent the thing, i.e. me, when I've made a couple investments, because I didn't drill down into that, right? So you got to understand that for sure.
So I have a zinger question for you. So, and then we'll keep moving this along. Your thoughts on technological advancements in smart homes and smart living when it comes to rental properties? Where do you think that's going to impact the most? Are you thinking with the new migration cities, like the smaller MSAs in the Midwest? Where do you think that's going to flourish the most? Because a lot of the older buildings are on the East and the West Coast, but a lot of the movements going into the Midwest, Southeast, so where do you think technological advancements will come for real estate investors and real estate investing over the next couple of years?
So first of all, any smart home or anything like that is going to depend upon the connectivity availability in the area. So number one, you have to have digital infrastructure. If there's not a good cell phone signal in that area, or even if they don't have Wi-Fi in the property, you can't do any smart building stuff. So number one, digital infrastructure is key. And I would beg to guess that every real estate investor at some point is going to need to be providing Wi-Fi. It's going to be like your hotel. People go to a hotel and if they can't connect to the internet, they get pissed off, right? So you as a real estate investor, if you're doing homes, are going to want to start providing that because your tenants are going to start demanding. So there's number one. But it also will enable all this smart building technology that you're going to want to have at some point as your portfolio grows. And over time, if you get more than say 10 units or 20 units, maintaining your buildings is, you can live in reactionary mode. You can stay there if you want to. If you want to get hit, have surprises happen to you every month, and you want all those great things, fine. If that's how you want to operate your business, great. Then you can do that, and you'll eventually fail. But what's going to happen over time is there's more AI that's coming out, more IoT devices coming out, more stuff that you can manage your operation and be super predictable about it. You can forecast things in advance, and you're going to kind of see what's happening so you can budget better and maintain your buildings better. And you're going to have, but it's going to be number one dependent on your choice as bringing digital infrastructure to your property or having it available or somehow doing that. And then I think what's going to happen is those kind of infrastructures are it can be anywhere. So it really doesn't matter geographically. I mean, it could be in Indianapolis, Indiana, or it could be in wherever it might be. It's just I think most real estate owners are understanding now that if they're not adopting technology, they're going to get left behind. And you can't just operate the way you've been operating before, because in this environment that we're in where every owner is just getting squeezed, like inflation is killing them, insurance costs are killing them, the payroll's killing them, maintenance is killing them, and they can't raise the rents because now expenses are outpacing the rent growth, and they're feeling it, right, where they can't pay their mortgages and things like that. So you have to adopt technology so you can optimize your operation, because if you don't, then you won't make it, right? So I don't know if it's geographically or if it's just the owners are willing to they have to change. I mean, I think it's a national thing. Honestly,
I think as you get more higher end out of state landlords buying these massive amount of properties in the Midwest and going outside their box, typically where they buy, I think they're gonna modernize these properties they're gonna add these additional costs for the technological advancements like Wi-Fi, video. They're gonna use keypad entry. All of it's gonna be very highly advanced. I think that they have to spend that amount of money, because how are they going to compete with the new builds of new construction, right? It's numerically impossible, right? They're not going to be able to keep up with it, and they'll get squeezed out, and that's a fact. So I think technological advancements and smart home concepts are going to be on the forefront of all new construction, all build to rent, and a lot of the multifamily conversions, especially the commercial office retail buildings. They're already halfway there. So I think I think you're going to see a lot of that. And then to add one thing is the urbanization and migration trends. Urbanization continues to be a driving force behind the real estate demand. Cities are expanding, and more people are migrating to urban cities for better job opportunities and lifestyles. This is good and bad. I think with the illegal immigration that's going on, you're going to have a massive problem in some of these Midwest cities, because a lot of these people carry guns, man. They're going to put bullets in people's heads real quick. You're going to have some urban city civil war, by 2025 in these emerging markets, because there's still a little taste of hillbilly. You know what I mean? They still wear cowboy hats.
Are you picking on us?
No. I admire it. Like they're not going to let this shit happen in Oklahoma, like in Tulsa or Oklahoma City or some of these other cities. They're gonna start fighting back, and they're gonna start biting back. You know, a lot of these properties are going to offer better affordability and potential for appreciation, but it's also going to be an issue with the homelessness, and it's going to be an issue with the illegal immigration that's coming into some of these cities. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic as this rolls out. So
Sure.
yep. So we're gonna keep moving this along. Thank you, Amy, for that next half a nickel. I appreciate that. Um, some strategies maybe to think about during economic fluctuations. Researching your rental market and its economic influences, reviewing the housing and rent prices, analyzing the job growth and the current job opportunities, looking at population demographics, and studying days on the market for both sales and rentals, exploring also any new commercial activity or new industries that are coming to town. Justin, good morning and welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, economic realities in real estate.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Justin Jefferson. And the market. Really good stuff is but I guess my 2 cents would be if you're analyzing your deal or analyzing whatever type of project you have going on, I think it's important to get really granular and kind of know what's applicable to your what you have going on. For example, I was looking at like this land deal this morning. Just
You sound a little garbled, Justin.
can you hear me?
You're a little garbled. Get a little closer to the phone.
You know?
You're just garbled. You just got to come a little more clear.
Okay.
Better.
Yeah. So, anyways, just when analyzing a deal or when looking at whatever type of situation you have going on, I think it's important to know what's going on down the line that may affect you. So, like I said, I was looking at a land deal this morning and just trying to keep track of what's happening in the economy, trying to keep track of where interest rates may be. All of that's important, but I think it's more important to, like I say, look at what builders are doing, look at what's going on that might affect them, and then how that might affect you as well. Also, your numbers are going to be the key metric to, being staying afloat in this type of situation. So, I think most of the stuff has really, really been said, Joe. I can go back and forth about some of the stuff I got going on, but really and truly, I think it's just key to, respect the economy and respect what's going on and just be prepared.
Yep. Well, thank you, Justin. Appreciate that insight as always. Listen, you have to also look at the diversification of your investment portfolio. It's an ongoing strategy that investors can use to reduce the risk of market fluctuations. Having a diversified portfolio of real estate investments is especially important when things are uncertain economically. You'll remain balanced and profitable, especially when your properties extend across different markets, different property types, and various rental ranges. By diversifying, investors can better mitigate the risk that comes with the specific investments. For instance, if your portfolio includes various properties in different cities and regions, is it likely that downturns in one market may not negatively affect the other market? This offers a good buffer against losses caused by economic downturn. If you're a commercial investor who has historically rented out office buildings, the remote working trend has probably caused some serious slowdown in what you're earning and where you're renting. Keeping different properties in different areas work on attracting tenants from all different demographics and remain open to investment opportunities that may not have considered before. If you're a single family investor who has never considered units in an apartment building or multifamily like a duplex or even quad or 5 or 10 unit, now is the time to consider it. Linda, good morning and welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, economic realities and real estate.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Joseph. So nice to hear from you and to listen in on such great information. My name is Linda Pliagas, and I'm the owner of Realty 411. We're a news and information website for real estate investors. We also produce magazines, webinars, podcasts, and live as well as virtual events, all in an effort to help investors and to help them start and grow their portfolio. I've been an agent for over 17 years and a landlord for over 20 years. And when I think of the topic, economic realities in real estate, what immediately comes to mind is being, as an investor, being acutely aware of the current state of the market so that we as investors can mitigate risk and also maximize profit. I'd like to give an example of a strategy that is very popular. An example, in California, there is currently a housing shortage. And although the market has slowed down a little bit, we're not seeing a huge drop in pricing. So there's still tremendous opportunities for value adds. And several of my colleagues are buying fixer-upper single-family homes, and they're not only renovating those properties, but they're also adding an ADU in the back, a dwelling unit in the back. And they're creating from a single-family home a multi-family property. Some of them also convert the garage, and that will also make it 3 units on one property, which is currently legal in California for all single-family properties. Now, this is a very popular BRRRR method, one that's currently being done here out west, and many of my colleagues are really doing well by utilizing this BRRRR method. And I'd like to review what BRRRR stands for: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Another strategy that comes to mind when discussing economic realities in real estate is, just keeping abreast of current real estate market trends, cycles, and most importantly, interest rates, so that you can determine the best course of action for your existing portfolio, such as when to refinance your properties that you currently own so that you can make necessary improvements. Because, let's face it, properties are always going to require maintenance, especially if there's a high turnover. And it's important to reinvest funds and do capital improvements. Sometimes you're going to need to do large improvements, such as a new roof, maybe a retaining wall, etc. So by keeping on top of the economic trends on your market, you'll be able to determine the best time to refinance. And then you'll also be able to determine the best areas to reinvest in, because when you refinance to do capital improvements, that's the best time to pull out, let's say, an additional 50, 60, 100,000 and go buy other properties. And it's important to keep up on economic trends because Joseph spoke about diversification. So when you have that existing capital in hand, you need to know the best areas to invest in and the best type of properties that can fit your portfolio. Thank you so much, Joseph. Back to you.
Thanks, Linda. Listen, renovations are a tricky little thing to keep in mind. No lender will ever tell you this, but please listen to this. If you're buying a property for BRRRR, or you're buying a property for a flip, it's your first deal coming out of the gate, keep your renovation numbers under 50% of your purchase price. Meaning, for every 100,000, no more than 50,000 per $100,000 buying the property. Why? It keeps things in reality of getting the project completed. Also, a lender is going to feel way more comfortable that you're not going to fail. Okay? I know a lot of people that have an 800 score, 100 grand in the bank, and they want to do their first flip, and they want to do this. They want to buy something for 150 grand, and they want to put $200,000 into the property. That's not going to happen. That's going to fail. Okay? I don't wish it, but the odds of that failing are extremely high. Okay? If you're not underwriting that deal correctly, and you don't have the right general contractor, and you don't have the right understand costs and understand the timing of the completion of that project, completing that if you buy that project today, and that project is going to be completed in the middle of Christmas, no one's buying your house. It's not going to flip. Okay, it's just not going to. It's not going to price out correctly during Christmas and New Year's. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, so reality is keep your renovations in perspective to what you're trying to accomplish with the property, whether it's a cash flow play, DSCR play, creating a value add play, conversion, taking something from maybe a mixed use to a residential. Just be cautious, think it through, talk to really good professionals in that market wherever you are. Steve, good morning and welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, economic realities in real estate.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks so much. Yeah, and I'm Steve Franco on our homepage. I'm an investor, a real estate broker, and I really love helping people analyze their deals, get in real estate, expand, learn different strategies. And I just want to echo what you've been saying all morning. Is it is all about the fundamentals. It's all about the numbers and being pessimistic. I actually had a potential lending person today that wanted to borrow some money from me personally. And I just had to lay out to her. I said, look, first of all, you're graduated. Second of all, you're buying something for 50. You want to put another 180 into it. This is Tamaqua, Hazleton, Wilkes-Barre, PA. These are not small numbers around here. I know in California these sound like pennies, but around here they're not. And I just kind of had to break it down for her and say, you're too new, the deal is too big, too confusing, and there's too much chance of failure. And, everything was wrong. She was depending on the most advantageous rental numbers, this. And that's when I switched into consulting mode. I'm like, I have to help you understand how to run the numbers, how to make sure it's right. And I think the biggest lesson is having good partners like Joe and whoever else you might work with in lending and other categories that can be honest with you and say, listen, this is a great deal. This will work for you, 18 different ways. Or there's too much danger, especially as the market, we are still stable. Northeastern Pennsylvania is still growing, still powerful, named as Forbes top 100, whatever. We're still flat as far as or maybe even growing a little bit as far as our numbers, our sales numbers, our rental numbers. But that can't last much longer. It's been 20-30% over the last 3-4 years in a market that used to grow at 2%. The glory days aren't over, but they're certainly not going to be this glorious anymore. You have to realize that. If you're buying, I'm looking at some land to develop myself, and I'm saying, big election coming up, confusing time, yada yada. I'll be done in March. What's March going to look like? March might not look like this past March. It might not look that strong. When I finally get the house ready, what is crystal balls are bad? What is the future going to hold? How safe am I running my numbers? And the other economic reality, at least around here, is we've topped out incomes. You're only going to pay a warehouse worker in Scranton so much, and that's a substantial part of our rental market. So as someone else said, if they make $36,000 a year, how much can you actually depend on them paying? And that's really where it all comes back to. For me, it's all about the math. It's not about, gee, I love this seller, gee, I love this property. It's about what are the actual numbers showing us, and who do I rely on? Just like Joe or whoever. Who do I rely on to give me the outside perspective so that I don't get stuck in my own dream?
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that insight. And I'll tie it into one thing that reminds me of the Poconos. I was just up at Kalahari, and people are paying $400 a night to stay at that place. What if the economics just doesn't attract that person that can afford that $400 a night? What happens to that market? There's really nothing else up there dependent upon that area to progress. So it'll be because they're supposedly also building a Margaritaville up there, and now I'm sure that's going to come with a very pricey per night ticket as well. Stay informed about your market and economic conditions. Investing successfully in real estate and staying one step ahead of the potential economic fluctuations means being up to date on potential factors that can affect your investment. You'll be in much a stronger position if you can stay updated on the market trends, shifts, local regulations, general economic outlooks, and any legislation that can impact the industry. I mean, I have Squawk Box on every morning starting 6 a.m. I'm at the gym, I'm listening on my phone, and then I'm getting back to my office and I'm watching Squawk Box and watching the numbers, watching the 5-year, the 10-year treasury, watching some of the construction impact. I like land right now. I like new construction right now. I think there's a huge opportunity doing spec build, uh, townhouse development, eat, work, and live environment. That 1 through 4 units is going to stay very, very hot. Brian, good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning: economic realities in real estate.
Yeah. Hey, Joe. I'm Brian Dezarian. I'm the founder of a company called Simply Homes. I'm also managing director of Simply Capital Management that runs our affordable housing fund. Simply Homes is a AI-powered, now end-to-end sourcing, underwriting, and property management platform that is able to underwrite at a very, very high level of accuracy value-add properties with about a 5 to 7% margin of error from when we do the initial underwrite to what the actual performance of the properties. We leverage that in our fund to acquire properties and then put them into Section 8 programs, post renovation that we largely do. But yeah, no, it's a good conversation, and one of the things a couple things. One, you need to understand what DSCR is if you're doing any of this, and especially if you're leveraging, because a lot of things that people want to go and do, and Joe goes to your point about the greater than 50% of purchase price. If you're going to be doing rental long term, if you don't understand not just what the rents are in the area and what the rent options are, market rent versus small area fair market rent if you want to go Section 8, which can oftentimes be higher, but you have to know how to calculate it because you have to allow for the utilities allowances. But if you're coming out and your DSCR is 70, 0.7, and you need to have 1.15 or 1.2, that deal's not going to work. And I've seen this happen to people. They overbuild and then they end up in a situation where they can't rent it to actually be able to qualify for the loan, let alone have to pay for everything else. So that's a big one. The second thing is, understanding your renovation costs. I realize that most contractors can barely estimate, how to tie their shoes. A lot of contractors will give you a scope of work that is very broad. And if you don't understand what actually is going into that, your materials, your labor, how they're, what they're calculating for those values, are they using actual real world values versus just back of the napkin stuff? What ends up happening is that scope is going to end up not actually encompassing what you need to do, and everything else ends up being change orders, or it's not allocated for. And I just had to rip into one of my own contractors about this, and because it happened, he was a newer one, and he sent over a scope of work, and he had a 9-hour landscaping labor allowance to do some work around our properties. And when I read what it was reseeding and putting straw down for the lawn, but he had no allocation for grass seed or the straw. Well, grass seed has a very specific spread rate. And depending on what grass seed you're using, it can become expensive if it's a large one. And he hadn't allocated for that, which meant when he went and did the work, yeah, he might have had the labor correct, but he didn't have the materials correct because they weren't even on them. And if that had gotten signed off on, then where's the money for that coming from? So you have to really make sure that you understand how to estimate and how to create scopes of work and how to read them if you are using contractors or subcontractors to do stuff and hold them accountable. Subcontractors and contractors will try and something, no knock directly, but it's just a fact. Most of them will try to get stuff by you. It's not always intentional. It's just they're oftentimes somewhat lazy when it comes to that part of the job. And if you can't be, and if you don't know how to manage that, you're going to end up in a bad situation. We, for instance, we have an AI. We call it Sam. Sam is literally an expert estimator. Sam generates our scope of work. He has access to literally 65,000 different line items. And this is how we do it. So when we get a scope, we run it through Sam. Sam comes back and kicks out exactly what needs to be on that scope, even if it's very broad. It could just say, demo bathroom. And that demo bathroom is actually going to come back with like 28, 30 line items broken out with different materials. And you can do that manually, but you have to be able to do that. The devil's in the details in real estate. And if you don't know how to navigate that, don't do real estate until you do. Work with somebody and learn that process. And then the last thing is, just on the ADU thing, it's a topic that came up in another conversation that I had last week. Be very careful when you're looking at ADUs. Most of them are actually very, very poor investments. They're expensive. They don't add a huge amount of value compared to their cost. And if they're going to have a positive ROI, it can be very, very long tail. And so just be very careful with that. If I had the money and I was going to go and put, $150,000 into building out an ADU on my property, and like here at my home, I actually have our main house, and then we have a guest house. That guest house has a 2-car garage and a 1,200 square foot unit above it, 2-bedroom unit above it, and it's gorgeous. And that unit but if I were to build this today, I would probably not build it because to build this is probably $300,000, $400,000, and I could not make the rental back on it if I was renting it out to make that work. And that doesn't matter if this is a big one. You build a small one, it's the same thing. You have to understand if it's actually going to make sense because you could take that same money and go and buy a freestanding property with probably a lot higher opportunity for it to generate a positive ROI for you. So don't fall into the trap of ADUs are a good idea. They very rarely are, which is why you haven't seen as much of a mass adoption outside of certain problem cities that you would. So just be very careful with it. And Joe, I agree with it. I think ground up right now in certain markets can make a lot of sense if you're selling. I think ground up for long-term rental, build to rent is just a dead dog right now. I think it always has been, to be honest. You can rehab property for less than it costs to build a new one, which means that you have a higher opportunity of actually making money there. But know your numbers. Don't trust your contractors. Make sure you know how to do that part of their job. And then make sure you have the checks and balances to ensure that that work is actually being done before you pay the invoice. Because that means line items, works, and scopes of work, that kind of thing. And figure out how much you're spending is going to figure out into what you can actually carry for a note. And is what you're doing actually going to be able to cover it and perform? Because you don't want to be coming out of pocket every month for a delta because you didn't that difference. And make sure that you've run it by your lender at the same time, and it's all checking out. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to touch on a couple of those, which I can, which is nice. I'll go with the debt service one first. I mean, debt service coverage ratio is the fundamental element of real estate investment financing, particularly for, any real estate investor that's non-documented, meaning no tax returns, no pay stubs, no W-2s. Non-bank lending in the DSCR is far exceeding any bank financing at this point. dead for none. It's fact. But some mistakes that investors make when applying for DSCR loans, not understanding the concept of DSCR, not really understanding how it works. We offer a debt service coverage ratio worksheet. Email me for it, please. Okay? You need it to understand the dynamics to be a real estate professional and a real estate investor in today's market. Not understanding the concept of DSCR, you will fail. Overestimating your net operating income, underestimating your total debt service, ignoring property condition and market value, neglecting credit history, and failing to maintain proper documentation. Navigating the world of debt service coverage ratio loans can be complex, particularly in a single family through four family space, short-term rental, and or mid-term rental. A solid understanding of DSCR concept coupled with sound financial practices is essential to maximizing the potential of the unique form of real estate financing. Okay, so that's one thing. Two, I think ADUs are specifically for certain markets. I don't find it cost benefit unless, in the investment space right now, from an asset-based lending industry, we don't recognize the ADU if the property is not zoned to be a multi-unit property. So if it's a single-family property and there is an ADU, we can't use the ADU income toward the global debt, toward the debt service coverage ratio of the subject property. So that's where a lot of the caveats come in. But for like a West Coast situation where the prices of these houses are astronomical, the owner could actually move into the ADU and rent out the house and balance out their books. So there's some cost benefit there, on the ADU. But from an investor perspective, I'd be very cautious on ADU. And then number three, on the new construction, I have to say it's one of the hottest products right now that we have out there. We can't find enough developers to develop single family through four family. We obviously have a minimum. We need single family through four family. People, lenders are staying away from the multifamily development because of cost. They're more friendlier to new construction, especially if you own the land already and you have the third party done. We're going to reimburse on that, and we're going to leverage you up to 100% vertical. Rates right now for new construction at 100% financing of the construction piece. As long as you own the land and have money spent on that and money spent on the third party, we can kind of take from Peter to Paul, leverage up to 100% on construction costs, escrow 12 months of interest. You're probably looking at anywhere between 9.75 and 10 and a quarter right now on money. And if you could turn that around, that could be, it could be cost benefit down the road if there's some tax incentives, some tax abatements, depending on what market you're in. My concern is, will the value be there on the back end and the comps be there by the time you're done with the project? Now, one thing I'd like to see in the new construction is that we see more modular building allowability in the new construction space. It's not there yet. It's hard to comprehend the draw schedule with a modular build, but I'd like to see that come into the asset-based lending space in the next 12 to 24 months, because that might expedite the whole process of cost, because the cost is near equivalent to new build to modular, but the speed and the expedition of the project turnaround would be very important for a developer. So that's something I'm hoping to see. It's not there yet, but that's my adds to what Brian had to say. Kazi, good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, economic realities and real estate.
Yes, my man, Joseph, man. How you doing this morning, my man?
I'm blessed.
Awesome. Let's start one day at a time, man. Yes, thank you. I'm KZ, based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on KZ Development Group. We mainly focus on affordable housing, workforce housing, through new construction, adaptive reuses, using a lot of different federal, state, city, county resources. It's like low-income housing tax credits, workforce housing tax credits, new market tax credits, historical tax credits, in order to convert, offices over into, or buildings, historical buildings, I should say, over into housing, and also developing new construction. So we're, based in a couple different states. our main states are Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada, but we also have some partnerships that allow us to do some stuff in Indiana, Michigan, Virginia, and New Jersey as well. So I'm only going to talk about just the kind of affordable housing, workforce housing space. I think it's some very exciting times in the affordable workforce housing space as the a lot of different city, county, state, and federal are increasing the supply of resources. In particular, like on the federal side, they have increased the housing choice vouchers, to about 2.4 billion, increasing home funds by over 1.8 billion, CDBG funds, that's community development block grants, about 3.4 billion increase, homeless assistance grants about a $3.7 billion increase. A lot of states are implementing their own workforce housing tax credit now. So that's pretty exciting, where you can use, for AMIs in between 80 to 120%. You have the 501c3 bonds that are starting to be highly utilized now for affordable workforce housing. That allows you to go anywhere from call it 50% in AMI up to 140%, at an AMI. So we're seeing a lot of different resources out there, at least the states that we play in, and then just nationally from the federal side, they're increasing a lot of different, and also reducing some of the constraints as well. So like one of the biggest ones was the taxes and bonds. So they was able to reduce that down to 35%. The bond test was at 50%. And I was kind of making it, a little difficult, to pass your 50% bond test. By decreasing it to 35%, that should be able to create 2 million additional homes, throughout the nation. So I think that's very exciting. Glad I was able to get that, reduced. We tried to do down to 25%. The bond test, but now it's down to 35%. I think on the lenders, investor side, of course, no matter if it's affordable housing, market rate, whatever, I think we all feel the tightening, out there. So the lending equity underwriting has changed. Like Dr. Reuse is now there, 15%. We should get away with 10% on contingency. We have a couple that we're closing in the next month or so, and we have to increase our contingency to 15%. Of course, expenses. Always. That's one thing I talk about. I'm always talking about development expenses. That's the main thing. It's the driving point. Make sure, when you're double checking your expenses, especially on new construction or Dr. Reuse, make sure you're getting with the city, right away with the tax assessment, just to make sure you guys are on the same page on where your property taxes may, fall. Sometimes, they can be 4 to 5, 8,000 or more than what you're estimating. That can be a big difference in your underwriting, what you can borrow. So, just make sure you're triple checking your insurance costs, right away, and make sure you have some comps to back up your expenses. What I'm seeing across the nation is about a 7% increase from like last year. It can be a big difference. Imagine if you have, 400,000 in expenses from last year, and the investor lender is increasing that by 7%. What that's about close to 28,000 or something. That's a big difference. Maybe a little bit more than that. That's a big difference. In the amount of debt you can borrow. If you're imagine if you're underestimating about 28,000. Imagine if your property insurance coming in 4 or 5,000. Not your insurance, property taxes coming in 4 or 5,000 more. That's a big difference. What you can borrow, and that can create a significant, gap. So, that's one thing that we're doing on our end, especially going to different markets, making sure that we're getting our tax estimate, right away from the city. Of course, things can change, right, as you change around, unit mix or AMI, stuff like that. But at least with the initial glance underwriting, just to get a back of the envelope, try to be as accurate as much as possible. Get your lender and get your equity involved as early as possible. Once you think you have something that pencils, get your equity and lender involved right away, just to kind of get their feed on the market. So another thing I'm seeing too, I leave it here. This could be with the election. A lot of CRA investment is down right now in affordable housing in the space, or not down, just you're not seeing as much appetite right now. And that could just be because Steve brought this up earlier. The election, just the election, what's going on right now. With the maybe the unknown, right? So we seeing some CRA pricing down, which kind of affects the pricing that investors, pay. Typically CRA investors in affordable housing look for about a 3-4% return, so that usually get you up in the high 80s 88, 89, even 90 cents of pricing. Versus right now, we just got a lot of economic investors out there, which they want, 7, 8% return, which has you in the high 70s, low 80s. So I think also just really paying attention to that is getting your equity involved early inside that market just to see what they're kind of paying in that market. But like I said, CRA is kind of down right now. I think after election settles, we'll start to see a lot of more CRA investors back out in the market. But other than that, I really think it's a great time to be up in affordable housing. It's a lot of resources. We see a lot of market rate people getting into the affordable housing space, and I think no matter what's really going on out there in the market, the affordable housing seems to still thrive. And we just making sure that we're dotting and crossing our T's. So.
Thank you, Kazi. And listen, I like affordable housing. I like workforce housing. I think I think the combination of incentives and credits are out there, state and federal. A lot of the urban cities are scaring away some of the developers right now because developers were trying to do some new builds for sale, and now it's all kind of moving toward the rental space. I do see a lot of integrating of engaging with the local community with a lot of these projects. I see mixed use development going where there's going to be some small storefronts. Another thing that I like, I'm seeing in that workforce housing, affordable housing, I'm seeing office workspace. Okay, they're definitely bringing that flexibility and those amenities for people to be there, adding office and private access, private spaces. That will be incentivizing for a certain type of demographic that one don't want to own a home, or two can't afford to buy a home, but they can afford to live. Like I know a lot of people that the difference of living in one apartment building or another might be a gym, or it might be the office space, it might be the workspace. Those two incentives is going to box out these smaller, older landlords on some of those buildings that are very aged out. So I have some concerns there with it. Whoever gets elected in November, the states are still going to be responsible for a lot of the allowabilities in these smaller urban cities to progress in the rental affordable housing movement. I think rent control in some cities might present themselves a little sooner than later. Could be a good thing. I'm a little concerned about some of the housing authorities in some of the cities now buying properties themselves and then giving themselves HUD loans on the back end. They're boxing out some of the developers and kind of taking the forefront on buying some of these properties. I don't know if that's monopolization.
Nevada recently, the Southern Nevada Housing Authority, they put out the housing choice.
Yeah, it's happening in Philadelphia too, and I'm not a big fan of socialism, Kazi. So
yeah,
I'm not a big.
We did all that work, for no reason, Joe. Like
yeah.
A lot of work when you apply for housing choice.
Yeah.
Applications are very long. So
yeah.
Very, very long. Just keep all of them. Like seriously.
Yeah,
just real quick, I forgot to mention about the greenhouse gas reduction fund.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest play out here right now for affordable workforce housing. Get the total, I think I'm gonna say it's almost $100 billion that was released in greenhouse gas reduction funds. Wisconsin received about 628 million of those greenhouse gas reduction funds, which can be utilized for new construction or retrofits to existing buildings, as long as you're providing an affordable workforce, housing. So that's the biggest play out here right now. It's like solar panels and sustainability, other sustainability measures, and tapping into these grants and low interest loans. So most of the states is city advised that are controlling that money, or maybe some type of economic development association. So like in Wisconsin, it's the WEDC, or Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, are controlling those funds, and they partner with CDFI. So every state right now, there's a lot of money being circled around through the greenhouse gas reduction fund. I think that's the biggest play we have right now. That's almost like considered like COVID funds, if you will.
Yep. So I think it's a double-edged sword, having the housing authorities being the developers and the developers getting boxed out of certain opportunities. But if the developers don't feel like the cities are providing them the incentives to build out, these projects, it is what it is. But there's a lot of very serious, transparent economic realities in real estate. And as a real estate investor, you really have to pencil your deals down. You really have to watch the economic data that's coming out there, local and regionally, for yourself. Nationally, it might be a little tougher to get your head wrapped around. Focus on your immediate market or the regional market and what is going on industrial wise, commercial wise, residential wise, sales, the attrition. You're starting to see a lot of people changing companies. You're seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions. How is that going to impact you as a real estate investor? Amy, your final thoughts to our discussion this morning: economic realities and real estate.
Thanks, Joe. Again, I'm Amy Palvido. I am a real estate technology founder, chair of the U.S. PropTech Council, and a longtime real estate investor. And I would just say, economic realities, like Joe said, you always have to be paying attention to what's happening in your markets, what's happening nationally, and if you aren't, all you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot and the face. And pay attention to certain key factors that are going on in your market. Obviously, wage growth, annual median income. Drill down in the data. Know what your data is and what is important to your type of real estate investing that you want to do. And find out what those data points are and constantly be watching them, because that's your livelihood there. So thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks, Amy. And one final thought is, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or follow me, I post these articles up on a daily basis to provide you hopefully some direction and insight. But you should be going to these sites where I'm getting these articles. It's not like I'm making them all up myself. You got to stay informed and understand and have the TV on and see what the market's bearing and how that's going to impact you as a real estate professional. So this is a great room today. I want to thank everybody. We're here every Saturday and Sunday morning. We have a website, creativebirdstrategies.com. All 50 plus podcasts are on there. We're hitting over the 50 market right now. We definitely are very unique room here on Clubhouse. We have our own podcast. We offer educational worksheets for our listeners to stay informed and better pencil their deals down. So if you want those worksheets, please email me. If you want to be on our database for upcoming events, we have some great events coming up this Friday in Philadelphia. We have a wine and cheese mixer at our wellness center and a school for massage therapy down in Old City. So if you're around, come on by. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be from 6 to 9. We're going to have a great time networking and getting to know one another. We just had another great event, Yordell and I. We had close to 100 people this past Thursday. So we're keeping it moving along. We're going to have a mastermind meeting second Monday of every month. We're going to be here every Saturday and Sunday morning. We'll be traveling to various events throughout the region and nationally for real estate. And I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Mr. Yarrow Perkins of Perkatech. I want to thank MB Capital with Eric Moss and unsecured business lines of credit. I want to thank Lenmark Capital, providing asset-based lending nationwide. And I want to thank Realty 411 with Linda Pelagas, providing our national publication and her national events throughout the country for real estate professionals. And my quote this morning: when you forgive, you heal. When you let go, you grow. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. And I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. And thank you.